What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. It is Wednesday, May 24th. My name is Euan, and on today's episode, we will be getting into some F1 fantasy with the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix preview. Last week, I had the Imola Grand Prix all set up. I had the show ready to go, and then it was unfortunately canceled, but for the right reasons, as that region was getting blasted with rain. Good call by F1 to not uh, go through with that, as it would have been, bad for optics, and just there was more important things going on. So good job by Formula One for once to kind of see where the world was at. But we're going to just blast right ahead. We're going to take a look back here at what was the last race at this point, which is the 2023 Miami Grand Prix. Didn't do an episode for that as I was on vacation. So just a quick refresher. Sergio came out on top in qualifying here as Max had to abort his lap, and it cost him, as there was some red flags going around. Kevin Magnussen popping up in fourth place. That was going to hurt him in fantasy points, obviously, as we know that qualifying high in a bad car is not going to do well. But the race, while people were thinking that maybe Checo could hold on, Max was pretty unstoppable on the day. He did a phenomenal stint on the hard tires, and yeah, as we've seen a lot this year, it was Max 1, Sergio 2, Fernando Alonso 3. But there is hope for the future that this can get mixed up, as Mercedes finally bringing those upgrades that we are all hoping make this race a little bit tighter and get the Silver Arrows back on track. But those were the Miami Grand Prix results right there. Some facts and stats here. The optimal team for Miami was Red Bull and Ferrari, actually, with Verstappen. And then you could have gone with Russell or Perez just based on the price. And then Alonso, Stroll, and Tsunoda. That was based on a $102 million budget for 348 points. Positions gained leaders here: Verstappen with 8, Hamilton 7, Tsunoda and Stroll at 6. And then overtakes, it was Tsunoda. Phenomenal race for the AlphaTauri driver. Verstappen, Hamilton, and Russell all with 9. And the fastest pit stop, Ferrari coming in again. That's a couple of times that's happened in 2023 where they've taken top spot in the fastest pit stop, and then McLaren getting on the board in 2023 with the third fastest pit stop. Driver fantasy points here kind of switched up the table from the beginning of the year. So points per race, last 3, points gained, or positions gained and overtake points in the middle, or the second column on the right, points per race for the season, and then the points per $1 million. As you can see, Red Bull, Aston Martin still kind of dominating those charts, but Alonso doesn't have a lot of positions gained and overtake points in the year. Hamilton's doing a lot better there. But yeah, points per race over the last 3, you can see there. Perez is actually leading Verstappen over the last 3. But yeah, Mercedes creeping up there. Carlos Sainz had a couple of good races. Lance Stroll has kept it clean after crashing out in Saudi Arabia, or mechanical failure in Saudi Arabia. But the points per million right there, Fernando Alonso, 3.1 million. No reason to get him out of your team. Here is the bottom 10. I'm not sure if I call them the bottom 10. Maybe there's like a bottom 5, but Tsunoda with a insane race, just phenomenal in Miami. He's probably put himself ahead in the race as the best back marker to get on the year. Definitely ahead of Zhou Guanyu at this point. Lando Norris showing some life here. Oscar Piastri finally starting to find his feet, but yeah, not so good for Nick DeVries, Logan Sargent, or Alexander Albon. In the constructors, it's still Mercedes coming up there a little bit, but for the price, 6.6 points per million for Aston Martin. That is phenomenal value. Why would anyone take them out of their F1 fantasy lineup? I do not know. Red Bull has been on absolute fire. 101 average points per race over the last three, 95 points per race on the season. They are far and away the best constructor. And even if you're trying to go a little bit contrarian with Ferrari, it's just not worth it. For the savings, you're losing over double the amount of points if you're just trying to be different. It's not worth it at this point in the season. There's still so many races to go, even with the Imola cancellation. That doesn't sound like it's going to get made up. I would still just go with Red Bull and Aston Martin until something changes. And maybe it will this weekend if Mercedes can show us something. Just not sure if we're going to see the full extent of those upgrades in a track like Monaco. Driver of the weekend, it's almost a month ago since the Miami Grand Prix, but yeah, Yuki Tsunoda, more like Suyesta. Sorry for the terrible headline there, but qualified 17th, finished 11th, positions gained 6, overtakes 10, fantasy points 16. That's his highest fantasy points, or his highest score in fantasy points on the entire year. And his 10 overtakes were the second most this season, tied with Verstappen when he came up from 15th, I guess, and Perez had 12 in Australia. So great job by Yuki Tsunoda there. Came through in the clutch for all of his fantasy managers that put him into the lineup. Unfortunately, I was not one of them. Driver price changes, still a little underwhelming here in the increases, but Verstappen and Alonso going up. Hopefully Alonso keeps ticking along and moving upward, so we have to make a decision at some point in the near future, but I don't think everyone, like 82%. I did this I took this screenshot last Tuesday. I know all the transfers have been reset. I don't think the chips they weren't used last weekend for Imola, but I think I saw F1 Fantasy Hub on Twitter. He had a test team and he played a chip last week, or they played a chip last week. I have no idea. It was still stuck. I think they used the final or no negative chip, and it still was stuck on their team for this weekend's race in Monaco. So just make sure when you play those chips nice and early, just in case. No negative might be a good chip to play this weekend anyway, because it's Monaco and the weather looks a little wet as of right now. But moving over to the fallers in the driver price changes, Lando, Valtteri, not a great weekend for McLaren in the price department, and Kevin Magnussen. I mean, you qualify fourth on just a surprise ending with a red flag because of Charles Leclerc's crash on his flying lap. And then he was just going to tumble right down the order. As that Haas car is not great on race day, but it is quite spry when it comes to qualifying on a one lap thing. There's more driver price changes here. A lot of the back markers lost money. That's what a big key of Tsunoda was as well. Alexander Albon went down, Zhou Guanyu's gone down, Nico Hulkenberg's gone down, and Logan Sargent just plummeting towards 3 million at this rate, as he cannot seem to get going, unfortunately. Rough couple of races there for the Williams drivers. Over on the constructors side, only one team went up in price. That was Red Bull going 1-2. That's going to help a lot. McLaren, Alpha, Haas, and Williams all falling. But like I discussed earlier, what are we doing if we don't have Red Bull and Aston Martin as our two constructors? I have seen a lot on the couple of Discords I'm in and on the Reddit threads that there's a lot of fantasy leagues that are a little fed up with the way the game is constructed, and they're kind of creating their own rules, like you can only choose one asset from each constructor. I think that's a really fun way to switch it up if you're looking to still get more enjoyment, more flexibility, different lineups in your F1 fantasy team. So definitely go on there, ask around, see what kind of rules could be fun if you're trying to spice up your fantasy league, if people are kind of checked out with the meta of the 3 Red Bull and the 3 Aston Martin. But over here, we are the Monaco Grand Prix preview. I am getting this out on Wednesday night. I did not have my tuxedo ready to wear for the fanciest Grand Prix on the circuit, although Las Vegas may try to push that to the limit in November later this year. 78 laps, 19 corners, 1 DRS zone, and it's been around for a long time, as the first Grand Prix was in 1950. Monaco Grand Prix 2022 results, that was kind of a crazy race if everyone remembers. Qualifying started off quite insane as Sergio Perez caused a red flag on the last lap for a lot of people. So Ferrari got the pole once again. Charles Leclerc on top in his home race. The Monegasque driver starting on pole, but then it all fell apart on race day, as it very often did for Ferrari in 2022, as they tried to double stack in the pits, and it just went totally haywire, and it did not go well. Will always have the stay out, box. What the are we doing? Little soundbite from the Ferrari garage in 2022 in the Monaco race. But yes, Sergio came out on top, danced in the pool. I think right after that, Max Verstappen's dad posted on maxverstappen.com that Red Bull were not doing everything they could to make sure Max won the World Driver Championship. And then all of a sudden, the car started to go very much towards Max, and the rest is history as he cruised towards a second Drivers' Championship. Simulations for the Monaco Grand Prix preview this week, just kind of based off the season average, thanks to F1FantasyTracker.com here. But Verstappen and Perez, 2 most popular drivers, probably going to get the most points. Alonso, still best bang for your buck, along with Perez. Constructors, Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Red Bull. Ferrari expected to get some more points this weekend. They seem to be getting those fastest pit stops, which is surprising considering what I was just talking about with their 2022 disaster in Monaco. But yeah, Ferrari could start to come into our thoughts if they can consistently get it together. But Red Bull is just on another level, as the constructors are heavily weighted with how their drivers do. So until Ferrari's car actually gets a lot better and starts to kind of match Red Bull, which it could on a random weekend like Monaco, where there's not a lot of passing, pole is very important. It could be a weekend to go different. I'm not that brave. I'm not going to do it. I'll stick with Red Bull and Aston Martin. Best team that they're predicting here, Verstappen ×2, Perez, Alonso, Stroll, Tsunoda. Pretty sure that's what my team is going to look like. It's the same team for the 102 million cap, and for 100 million cap, you can go Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Tsunoda, and De Vries, thanks to all of the price changes so far this season. As minimal as they have been, there have been some price changes that make it a little different if you're coming right into the game. The thing I want to highlight a little bit is how important it is, how important it's supposed to be to get the pole position on Saturday qualifying. It's gone well in the past for a lot of people, just not if your name is Charles Leclerc, as he has been on pole 2 times in the last 2 years, and he has come up with 0 wins in his home race. But in 2019, Lewis Hamilton did it. 2018, Daniel Ricciardo, and 2017, Kimi Räikkönen was on pole and actually finished second, as Sebastian Vettel kind of outpitted him in that race. And of course, in 2020, there was no race because of the COVID delayed season, and Monaco wasn't letting people in and out, and it was a whole thing. But yeah, Charles Leclerc hoping 3rd time's the charm if he can get on pole, or maybe he doesn't want to be on pole. Maybe that's what he thinks is stopping him from claiming his first win in Monaco. Here is a weather preview. I'm going to start putting this in every preview video from now on, especially after what happened last weekend. But yeah, Friday looking nice, but showers on Saturday and Sunday. So this could be a really good weekend to play that no negative chip if you're worried about some crashes and some just mechanical failures. I mean, Mick Schumacher went into the wall last year. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be some upgrades. Don't know how those perform, but Friday will definitely be interesting to watch with the new Mercedes upgrades. I know there's some other teams coming in with some slightly smaller upgrades too, but definitely the Mercedes. See if we can get anything out of it. And we might need to wait until the Spanish Grand Prix to really see the upgrades and what effect they have on these silver arrows. But yeah, rain Saturday and Sunday. If you remember last year's race, it turned into a timed race because there was just standing water on the track. I think it was like almost a 2-hour delay, like an hour and a half at least. Lots of shots of standing water, and it was, yeah, quite a crazy race. It's insane that Charles wasn't able to pull that out just with how much was probably in his favor. But Ferrari gonna Ferrari. This is my team for the week here. As of right now, I've got the meta with 3 Red Bull, 3 Aston Martin, and I still have Zhou Guanyu. I have magically picked the wrong back marker every single week for about 3 or 4 races in a row. So I'm just gonna lean into it and go with Tsunoda. He was second on my best of the back markers video, which was a couple of months ago at this point. So I think the transfer I'm going to go with is option A, Zhou Guanyu to Yuki Tsunoda, go with the 3 Red Bull and 3 Aston Martin. And the option B was something I was looking at last weekend for Imola, if I'm being honest, where if the Mercedes upgrade looks really good, I was maybe going to go Perez to Russell, see if they like qualify high and maybe go like final fix, Russell back to Perez. I don't know, but I think I'll probably just keep it calm here and go with Zhou Guanyu to Yuki Tsunoda for this week's race. Chip options here, also kind of from Imola, no negative, autopilot, final fix. Most likely it'll be no negative, especially if that rain is going to hold up. We just got to play it before qualifying. You got to activate that chip before qualifying starts on Saturday. Here are the upcoming races. I'll keep doing this as well just to remind us. But yeah, this is the second. Well, it was supposed to be a triple header. It's now just the first of a double header. We've got Monaco this weekend and the Spanish Grand Prix the following weekend. And then we got a 2-week break before the Canadian Grand Prix. And yeah, it'll be nice to get back on some, dare say, proper tracks with this Spanish Grand Prix and the Canadian Grand Prix, but we'll see. Monaco's always fun because the cars have kind of outgrown the track, but it's still a great spectacle. All the stars are out. It's still a fun weekend, regardless of what happens. And we'll see. Can Charles Leclerc do it? Can Mercedes kind of see what they've got with these new upgrades? It'll be very interesting to watch. But I am happy to be back. I went on vacation. It's the first video I've done for a month, but I'll be back and at them for the rest of the season. But you can like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, Backup Fantasy Sports, just down below. Would really appreciate it. Love all the views that it's been getting, all the comments. Really appreciate the feedback. If you want me to kick something out of the show, put something into the show, more than happy to do that. Always looking to improve. But once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.